The Wall Street Shuffle with Dan Cofall and Cindy Skull on CNN 1190, the only show that won't leave a spot on your blue dress.
How are you? Cindy here, Dan on the phone, live from St. Thomas. Woo!
It's beautiful down here, except it's raining right now.
Oh, good. That makes me feel better. This has been lousy weather up here, too.
I'll bet.
Yeah, so on the phone right now, we have former leader of Weather Underground, Bill Ayers. How are you, Bill?
I'm fine. How are you?
Good, good.
Well, how are you, my friend?
Good. Nice to hear your voice.
Yeah, nice to hear you, too. Our connection is a little bit bad, but hopefully I'll be able to pick this up. I want everybody to know that you and I had a great conversation before, and I believe last time you were on the show was President Obama's Inauguration Day.
That's right, yeah.
And somebody wouldn't think that somebody maybe as far to the one side as me and far to the other side as you would have a great conversation. But I have to tell you, I really enjoyed our conversation last time.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed it as well.
Let's make sure that everybody knows who you are. You're a professor of education at the University of Illinois in Chicago and a former leader of the Weather Underground. Now, there's so many things that, like I said to you the last time we talked, the reason I enjoyed the conversation was because I don't like it when people take me out of context. And I don't like it when people don't like me for the wrong reason. If they don't like me, they need to have the right reason. I want to set the stage for this interview. This is the exactly the same way. So let's start out. Let's start out with a topic probably near and dear to your heart, which is the Vietnam War and the parallels between Iraq and Afghanistan and the Vietnam War. What parallels do you see?
Well, there are many things that aren't parallel, but there are a couple things that are. I think they're quite different historical contexts, quite different social situations in those countries. However, I think both wars, both the Vietnam War and the two wars that we're engaged in here, were wars of choice. They were wars of invasion and conquest, and they are a mistake. And the tragedy is that just as Lyndon Johnson, the most effective politician of his generation, burned up his presidency in the furnace of Vietnam, anyone who knows the history and the situation is fearful that this brilliant young president is about to make fatal mistakes in terms of escalating into Afghanistan, which will not be won. It will not be won on the terms that they're talking about. It can't be. And so,
I have to tell you that like I said, whether you and I agree on certain things, it doesn't really matter. But on Afghanistan, I think I may be as concerned as you are because I know the history of Afghanistan like you do. And there's a major escalation in Afghanistan. Iraq was a different situation. Afghanistan, far as I know from history, nobody's won a war. Nobody's won an offensive war in Afghanistan, and yet we've got 120 to 150,000 troops over there. And I think that's even upsetting the President Obama's loyal left-wing base. Would I be correct?
I think it's a tragedy in the making, and I think you're right. Historically, you can go to Alexander the Great, Genghis Khan, the Soviet Union, Great Britain. Everyone who's tried to conquer Afghanistan has failed. There's no reason to believe that the United States will fare any better. And if we do militarily put down certain, elements of the society, what do we have? Their biggest economic export is poppies. I mean, it's what are we there for? What's the point? Now, if the point is to disrupt Al Qaeda, that's a very different matter, and that, it seems to me, should not be portrayed or fought as a war, but rather would be a police action with a very, very specific focus. Unfortunately, in the last 8 years, that focus has been lost, and it doesn't seem to be what we're about at all anymore.
Yeah, Bill, it's going to get really confusing in Afghanistan, and as we say to everybody who listens, you're further to the left than I am, I'm further to the right than you are, but I think both of us say in Afghanistan, if the U.S. is capable of winning any war they choose to win, but they won't win it with the hearts and minds of the Afghans because they'll have to use more strategic than tactical weapons. They won't be able to go in there and do as much surgical work as they want to. And without completely alienating all of that part of the world, I'm not sure how our U.S. military is going to go in there and take out individuals out of the middle of entire crowds. I don't know how you're going to do that.
No, and not only that, but we get a false picture in this country from the media. The fact is the Iraqi people have never supported our presence there, and they still don't. 80% of Iraqis want us out now. It's not even a question. So what do we think we're doing? Afghanistan is the same. People who have no love of the Taliban have no desire to have the United States invade.
I agree with that, and I think President Obama is going down some very tough ground right now. Everybody says that we need to go out and grab Osama bin Laden. I think everybody wants to grab bin Laden. If they could have gotten bin Laden without losing the support of the Pakistanis, losing the neutrality of India, I'm sure that they knew where Obama was, but I'm sure getting to him was a whole different issue.
Yeah, well, I have no idea about that, except that I do think that a specific focus on this marginal, small group would have been one thing, but to invade two countries, certainly Iraq, which had no relationship to 9/11 or the Al-Qaeda movement at all, really has put us in very, very perilous place.